starting with the strength workout. Like we said, we don't like to just go in and work out as hard as we can. We like to use a foam roller to loosen up our muscles, kind of get the circulation going, get your body prepared to do the movement. So that's one way you can do that. Again, you can refer to other videos either here, if you have the Zoom link from a few weeks ago, or you can check our YouTube videos also online. The other thing we like to do is a dynamic warm-up. So it's just basically maybe mimicking some of the moves that you're going to do later, just either standing in place or you can walk a little bit. So I'll just show you a couple for an example. We like to do like monster walks, stretch your hamstrings, this sort of thing. And even if your balance isn't great, you can just stand in place and you can hold on to something and do the same thing. You can open up through your hips. So once again, just getting everything moving, just both directions. Again, if you have any issues with sitting or with standing, excuse me, you can certainly hold on to something, okay? Even if you can't get up, you can even do these sorts of things in a chair. You can sit, open up through your hips. So everyone should have access. Everyone should be able to do some warming up. That's just a couple of moves.
I like to give people some squat formations, some squat patterns when they warm up, because you could start with just a little bit of a squat, and then as you start to warm up, you might go a little bit deeper. You can use a chair. We have a great YouTube video that we did on squat patterns. You can go watch that. That explains a little bit more. But to have people squat up and down can really give people an idea for how their legs feel that day pre-workout. And then to add on a squat and reach so that you're rotating a little bit, gives you some rotation through your ribs, which is just a nice stretch as you reach up and behind. It's a great stretch.
And again, like Kathy said, you know, it really is just kind of an assessment for yourself. Like, how is your body feeling? So let's do a couple of these moves kind of easy, kind of gently. Yes, you're warming up. Yes, you're getting the blood moving, but kind of noticing maybe for the first time that day, like, where do I feel tight? Where do I feel stuck? Can I do that? You know, wow, my hips feel kind of weird, or I didn't realize I really couldn't go quite that far. So it's just a lot of information that you're kind of taking in as you warm up prior to doing the actual movements.
Yeah, for sure. And it's important to get all levels of it too. There's a reason why we have you go down and up. Just gets your system used to going down and up. Maybe in your workout, you're going to be getting down on the floor and then getting back up. So there's just some real benefit in that. And for your heart health, if you do enough of it, enough repetitions, you might get your heart rate up a little bit, which is a great way to warm your heart up before you work out, because your heart is a muscle as well.
Bingo.
And it deserves the same treatment as your bicep and your quads and your glutes. Your heart deserves the same treatment. So to give it a little cardio hit and just get your heart rate up a little bit, get your breathing a little heavy, can be super duper important. Joan's raising her hand in the background. Yes, Joan.
Question. For all the people that want to get started with their squats, is there a particular way to do that?
Correct. What Joan asked, if you couldn't hear her because she's off camera, she just asked about if you're new to squats and you're just looking to get started, is there a way to do that? And as I mentioned, Jen and I just did a YouTube video on squats, how to start, how to progress, and a quick review, a sit to stand.
Yeah, so you want to start sitting. So it doesn't have to be a low seat, okay? Maybe you have a taller stool, maybe a higher box, something like that. And I would always say start a little bit higher. Even if you're like a crazy, awesome athlete or you have a lot of range, start higher just to give your body that input. You want to have your feet about hip distance apart. You don't want them too far under. You want them out a little bit because you want to shift your weight slightly, and then you want to stand. You want to push all the way from the floor all the way up, and you want to make sure to squeeze your glutes at the top. And then you want to gently come back down.
Do the feet thing again so they can see.
So your feet are down, okay? I'm just going to push up here, squeeze at the top.
And what she said was to make sure that the feet are
don't
not.
bring them back here.
Correct.
Sometimes when we sit, we're kind of hanging out, we're like this, and we just put our feet here. This is really hard, and then I'm pushing on my toes. Then look at the position of my knees. It's in front of my toes. That does not feel good on my knees. That is uncomfortable, and this is all doing the work. It's not even my muscles, it's my joint. So we want to make sure we have that really solid, firm base of support. Again, it's all about this foundation. Whether you've done squats your whole life or not, just come back to the form and the foundation and the technique. So you want to make sure you set yourself up for success. You're there, boom, come right up, squeeze. So my muscles are doing the work. They're about hip to shoulder distance,
Okay.
okay? You don't want them too wide, you don't want them too narrow.
Right.
Also, a lot of times, people are taught they have to have their toes forward. That's not necessarily true. We're all built differently. Women, their pelvises are built differently than men's. So what we kind of like to say is kind of position yourself to what feels good in your body, mostly with your knees. Sometimes you'll see my toes tend to point out a little bit because I have super tight hips. But as long as those knees pretty much track over like your second toe, you should be fine. But play with it. If your feet are totally forward and that doesn't feel right, just adjust a little bit and see how that feels.
One of the things that we do as trainers to help people with their squat form is to give people something to hold on to pretty much at eye level so that when they sit, there's something to hold on to. What we aim to do is push the hips back and drop down, and all the weight should be in your heels. So
Yeah.
oftentimes when people come down, they don't
They go
have the
like this.
strength and stability to sit into it. So they're unable to wiggle the toes. So a great thing to do is to go down in your squat and hold it and then try to wiggle your toes. Chances are some of you are going to go, whoa, and feel like you're going to fall over. And that's where having something to hold on to up above can help you kind of sit down and gain the confidence.
And you want to exercise your glutes, right?
Absolutely.
Feel it in your glutes.
Yes,
Yeah.
glutes and hamstrings for sure. As you come down, when you come up, you want to squeeze. Yeah.
And again, it's all really about your hips and your pelvis area. It's not about your knees. A lot of people just think that the movement's here, like I'm going to bend here and your back stays nice and straight. This has nothing to do with my back of my body whatsoever. So you want to hinge. What I always like to say, I think this is a better cue for me, and it might not be, anyway, I'll just say it. I like to say you're out in public and you have to use the restroom. Most people don't want to necessarily sit on a public toilet. So when you do that, think about it. You're not sitting straight down like onto a chair or something. Even with that, you're going to hinge. But think about hinging back, like you're kind of just hovering over something, like to call it the porta potty pose. So just think about that, okay? Think about that, how you send your hips back and you have to teeter. Think about maybe lifting those toes again, like Kathy said. So I know that might not be the greatest picture, but for me, that helps better sometimes than just saying, sit down into a chair.
And as Jen said, it's more about the hips rather than the knees. And a great way to help train your hips for your squats is with a little mini band. I've got the mini band above my knees. You can get these mini bands pretty much anywhere. Well, maybe not just anywhere right now because maybe they're sold out, but these mini bands can be relatively cheap and they come in a variety of resistance strengths, for lack of a better word. So to help train the hips and the glutes, we do something called lateral tube walking. So you've got this band around just above my knees. I'm going to turn sideways for a second so you can see. I'm going to come into a bit of a squat. It's almost like a quarter squat. So I'm hinging my hips back, tipping forward a little bit. All the weight is in my heels. And I'm simply going to go side to side and then side.
And the most important things with lateral tube walking is making sure that you keep tension on that band at all times. And you want to keep your toes forward on this one.
Can you put
Actually,
it on my toes?
yeah,
On my
and you
feet?
really want to keep your toes forward
Yeah.
because you want that work to be in your hips. It's not about your knees or your feet. So if she were to turn her foot out, her hips are not doing the work. Her hips are not doing the work.
So what you might see when you do this yourself, I have people look down at their feet and you might see the toe turn out and then straighten as you go. And you don't want to do that. You want to keep the foot, lead with the side edge. You might even think about pigeon toeing a little bit so that the toe doesn't duck out,
And the
okay?
other thing to think about too when you're doing this is try not to go fast. Okay, the whole point is to keep that resistance, kind of pause, slowly step it in, because that resistance is going to want to slingshot you in, and you're using those hip muscles to not only stabilize but to make the step. And Joan has another question.
Well, and real quick, as Jen said, we want to keep tension in the band. So checking out my feet, you don't want your feet to get too close together. If I step too close together, that's going to turn the tension off the band. So you want to think wide, extra wide, wide, extra wide. So there's constant tension. Yes, Joan.
Now, I know if you are someone in our audience is going to buy a band, the band's colors mean different tensions. So if we have someone in the audience who's just starting out, what color would you recommend Or should they buy?
Well, here's the thing, they usually come in a pack, and every company that makes the bands attaches a different color to a different resistance. So it's not universal. So one company might have red being the hardest and another company has it being the lightest. So basically what you need to do is read the package. And I would always say if you're first starting out using bands, get the bands that maybe start like light, medium, maybe heavier, light, extra light. Just go the lighter route first and then move up to the heavier ones.
What I tell people with bands, these bands are not like weights on a bicep curl where you might start with 2 pounds and then go to 5 pounds and then go to 8 pounds and then go to 10 pounds. You might always be at a medium resistance for certain exercises because the point is to get the fire in the right place and get the muscles firing in the correct way. And when we do band work for stability, it's not always about having the heaviest band. So as you get your bands, be okay with using a medium band sometimes or a light band sometimes and not always using that hard band.
Again, it's not necessarily about how much resistance. Really just that little bit of a tactile cue, just a little bit of resistance, just so there is an extra so we can get the muscle firing. But half the time, even when I do clams, I do a lot of clams where you're laying on the ground on your side. So Kathy, you do them in physical therapy. I don't use a heavy band. I used to use a heavy band because I could do it. But now I'm working on so many other things that I kind of keep it light to medium and make sure that I'm firing, not only just firing that, but where the position of my side body is, making sure my rib cage is down. Sometimes if there's too much weight, you might just be off in one little section, but that's going to throw off the whole exercise. So there's no point to be the heaviest or the hardest as possible.
I think
There's
that's
time
the
and a
beauty.
place for that.
I think that's the beauty of what we do
Mhm.
is I think people are used to it always being really hard.
Yeah.
And when we say it doesn't have to be that hard, do a little less, but focus on the detail. What people
Mhm.
realize is the hard is in the detail, not necessarily in the resistance or the weight. So finding that detail.
So it's good to
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's great they come in a
Yeah,
pack.
for
Because
sure.
Sometimes I do want to say that sometimes when you buy some of these bands, like, at a discount store or something, I mean, they're great. There's nothing wrong with them. I buy them there. But sometimes they're really light. Really light. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you already have a little bit of basic control and you want a little bit of resistance, it is nice to have that level. So maybe you might start with the second one. But you don't need one that's so heavy that you can barely move. That's not the point. We're trying to really get deep in those muscles and make sure they fire correctly and all the way. So
That is lateral tube walking. That is the absolute name. Yes.
And again, and these are great exercises. Like we're talking about strength and a little bit of heart health, but it all kind of goes together because we're not necessarily talking about someone who like it's just been out of heart surgery or something like that. But again, you can still start working lightly according to what your doctor says. But just to get that heart moving, getting that heart pumping, and it doesn't have to be at a really, really high level like HIIT workout. So any of this movement is going to start affecting your heart as well. And if you are somebody who is maybe a little more sedentary or doesn't move as much, these are actually perfect exercises to get you started.
And once you've gotten started, and if you feel like you've already got a good start and you want to incorporate a little bit more, a way to incorporate the heart into something like a squat pattern is if you were to do, let's say, 10 squats and then 10 squat jumps. And then 9 squats and then 9 squat jumps. So when you're squatting, just squatting, you're breathing pretty normally. And when you start jumping, it's going to get your heart rate beating faster and get your heart rate up.
Basically an interval.
And interval. And then you slow down and you squat. And then you pick it up and you jump. And then you slow down and you squat and you pick it up and you jump over and over again. And that gets your heart going.
And we know that some of you might be saying, oh, well, I can't jump. And that's a valid point. And a lot of people can't, and that's fine. And there are other ways that you can certainly get your heart rate up by adding resistance, going a little faster. There's just lots of different options. So just know you don't have to jump. There are other ways that you can get your heart rate up.
Sure. So squats, lateral tube walking, hips. How about like planks and stuff for shoulders and core?
Definitely is great for your core. Now we're not big proponents of doing like crunches per se. That's not saying we're not laying on your back, not doing certain things for your abdominals, but there are certain motions that aren't great for your low back. Kathy and I both have back issues. I've actually had back surgery years ago, so I don't really like to do a lot of those movements, but planks are a great way because it keeps your back nice and flat and you can progress it and regress it as needed. So you want to start high? And
Yeah, to start high. And this is another one that we just did a video on
Yep, we did.
YouTube on planks and how to progress them safely and
Mhm.
effectively. And the way we talk about it is elevation.
And-
Always.
You want me to hold it?
No, I'll move.
But even doing your planks, you know, depending on who you are, like maybe you're someone who works out all the time, you do planks all the time, you hold them for a minute, whatever, and that's great. But what we like, why we like to show all the different heights and variations is because we're not always at the same place every single day. You might be coming off an injury, maybe you have a torn hamstring. There's always something. So it's always good to know, well, okay, I can still work out, but I can't plank. Well, maybe you still can if you make this modification.
Yes, you can.
So-
Like, as Jen said, I mean, when you have injuries or things like that, you do have limitations. But just because you have limitations doesn't mean you can't do anything. So
Right.
we're big fans of how can you do it?
Yes, how can you
Not
do
not
it?
doing it, but how can you do it?
So
So
safely.
and do it safely. I'm going to show you over here on this one, and then we're going to flip over to Jen on that lower table. But over here, if you think about like your kitchen, even a kitchen counter, right? This is a little higher than a kitchen counter.
Yeah.
But if you slide the camera a little bit so they can see my feet. Even in this position right here, I'm in a plank position. I'm high on my toes. My legs are locked out. My butt's tight. My belly's strong. I'm pushing the floor away and back of my head is lifted. So this is a great plank. And if you're feeling groovy from here and you want to try a couple push-ups, you could go for it. And don't think of this as easy because you want to find your detail. You want to find the strength in the belly, the squeeze of the butt. You want to keep your heart open as you come down. We don't want to flare the elbows to the side. We want to keep them back. But again, you're focusing on detail. And if you feel good in a position like this, then you might want to go a little bit
And what
lower.
is great about that is there are a lot of people who have a hard time doing push-ups, doing them properly, may I say. So if you're not someone who can do a push-up on the floor, and I don't count being on your knees, sometimes there's a time and place for that, but we prefer to get people higher to build that upper body strength.
Yes.
So this is a great place to start. Make yourself come higher as opposed to dropping down to your knees.
Yes.
Okay. So
How about with steps? If somebody steps
Yeah,
up?
you could totally do your steps. You could start on, I don't know, the fifth step and then work your way down to the fourth step. Jen's going a little lower here. She's on the side of it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
remember, what's really important too is you want to make sure you squeeze. You want to squeeze your glutes, like squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. You want to keep that belly engaged. I always like to say, imagine you have like a string on the bottom of your ribs and on your hips, just slightly pulling together. So you feel that contraction in your
Yes.
abdominals, pulling that belly into your spine. It's not sucking it in, but it's as if, say Kathy was mad at me, which she would never be mad at me. And she wanted to just punch me in my stomach. And she's like, I'm going to hit you in your belly. I would brace to be ready for that. Okay. So you're keeping it firm. So that's really important. My shoulder blades are down. Everything's in a nice alignment. You see a lot of people going like this. You know where your feet are. You don't need to look at them. Okay. Pull your shoulder blades down. Keep everything in alignment. Everything is working right here. If you're doing it properly, even this can be very challenging. Yeah. And again, if you want to do push-ups from this position, you can. You can keep elbows in and press. You can keep them wider if you'd like. Okay.
What Jen's really going to focus on here too are these muscles right here,
Mhm.
right? So when we do planks and push-ups, we get all caught up in the chest and the throat and the front of the shoulder. Really think about your posture and your shoulder blades staying back instead of rounding. So
Yeah.
really strong through there too.
And you have a muscle that kind of wraps around your serratus. So that's really important when you're coming up into the top part of your push-up or your plank. You almost kind of want to push away again and you'll feel all of this working. So these exercises are working so much more than just like your shoulder or your arm or your core. Yes,
I have
Joan?
another question. So Kathy, the planks over on the higher table,
Mhm.
you mentioned don't come out with your elbows.
Mhm.
And when you did it, you spread your arm
Well,
and then they went out.
You brought up
Yes.
a perfect,
Yeah.
the perfect part of your question was, she changed her hand position. So my hand position was a little closer under my shoulders, which is why I cued kind of the elbows staying in a little bit. And when your hands go wider, the elbows will go wide a little bit.
So basically, when you're here, when you're more narrow, and I'm keeping this is more of a tricep push-up, very challenging for people. Most people are probably going to leave their arms a little wider. That's going to target more of your chest muscles. Here, it's just a little bit different. It's a little more challenging to keep those elbows right alongside your rib cage like that. So people may need to widen. But what she is saying is if your hands are here, you don't want your elbows to go out like that.
Correct.
You want them to stay in
Yes.
line. So if they're out here, I'm still not taking my elbows out there.
That's right.
I'm
And even
coming
though,
in this way.
correct. And even though your hands get wide, if you do the wide push-ups, which is traditionally what people do, they do a wide push-up. Even in your wide push-up, your elbows are not going to go out because that can really compromise the front of the shoulder.
Yeah.
So to have the hands wide and still have the elbows kind of drop back a little bit,
Yep,
so
we
you're
want
not,
that down and back.
yep, so you're not like rounding and crunching up through here is really important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
And then along on this step, you still maintain that.
That is correct. Yeah, because what people tend to do is peel themselves up off of the floor if they go too low. So Jen has mad push-ups. As I look at her, like, get down there and do a couple. So Jen has some mad push-up skills. She's on her toes. Yeah, back is flat. She's gonna
So,
come.
and I usually keep my hands closer together when I do push-ups. It feels better for me, but they are hard, okay?
Yeah. And so she's coming up. So she's nice and flat. Do one more like that, nice and flat. Can you show them how to peel? Which is
I mean, just like,
yes, and then the hips go, and then the hips go, and then the
oh,
hips
that
go.
feels
Yeah.
horrible.
That is sometimes what a lot of people do is they land and then they peel their chest up first instead of keeping their body nice and flat.
So it's kind of hard to even do that.
Correct.
Yeah,
And
don't.
rather than go on your knees, as we said, if you elevate, that's a great way to train. And we are big proponents of elevating because when you elevate on your toes and you work on decreasing your elevation, eventually, boom, you'll be on the floor.
You're gonna keep building that strength. Not that you're not gonna build it on your knees, but I don't think you build it quite as
You
much.
won't.
It's not the same position.
It's
So
not the same.
we prefer that you change that angle.
Or you
Plus
have
it's-
to use your stomach muscles if you do it standing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're on your knees, you're using your shoulders, but you're not really using.
I mean, you're engaging your core on your knees, but it's not quite as much because that lever is not quite as long. So it's going to be easier for sure on your knees. So again, just like anything else we teach, you know, what is the point of what you're doing? Like if you're just trying to bang something out, you're doing a contest or something, you don't really care. I mean, I guess you could do them, but I always say, what's the point? Like if I'm going to do a push-up, it's a really hard move. It's very strength-based. I want to do it properly and I want to be able to build strength. I want to get up to do, 30 push-ups. There's
Well,
a
you don't
goal.
want to get hurt.
You
And
don't,
you
and that-
don't want to
And
get
that's
hurt.
the thing, like, for some people, push-ups on the floor might seem really unmanageable. And, if you have shoulder injuries or back injuries, your goal might not be to do one on the floor, but you might want to do one, period. So to do one on your kitchen counter,
Even go to the wall.
yeah. And like I said, if you start and it feels fairly easy, good. Because when it's easy, you can find the detail.
Mhm.
And then if you're on the step and it feels silly easy on the 6th step, you go down to the 5th step and you try to find that detail, you'll start shaking and it'll be tough.
Mhm.
So it's really, really important, as we've said, with every exercise to find the detail. And I think that, again, is what the beauty of what Jen and I do, is we really focus on detail for people because it's safe for you. That's how you get the benefits. And when people come to work out, you're looking to get some kind of transformation, some kind of change, whether it's losing some weight or feeling better. So for us, it's really about the details.
It's an education. We like
do,
teaching people.
You get your heart rate up to the
Yes, especially if you do some variations
Mhm.
along with
What
your
would you
push-up.
recommend as a variation?
Oh, there's a
Hard.
million
Gosh,
variations.
you could be on all fours. I mean, you could be
Mountain climbers, plank jacks,
plank
shoulder
push-ups,
taps. Shoulder taps are
add a
great.
ball.
Shoulder taps are great if you're elevated because what shoulder taps do, you take one hand off, we're good here. You take one hand off and tap, and then the other hand. So all you're doing is taking a point of contact off, which challenges your core a little
Again,
bit
the
more.
lower you are.
Yeah, that's
And,
perfect.
and typically when you like speed it up, sometimes your heart rate will go a little quicker too. It just depends. But I mean, I can be on the floor holding a plank, you know, maybe for 20 seconds, and then I can do 10 push-ups, and then maybe hold a plank again for 20 seconds and go really slowly, and my heart rate's gonna go up because I'm working hard.
Well, and I'm glad you said standing up, because I tried it on the floor.
Yes.
That's hard.
It's really
Very
hard.
hard.
Yes. And what's important about doing that elevated is, as I said, when you're taking a hand off of the floor, you're deleting a point of contact. So everything is super challenged, including that shoulder, the postural muscles, your core, everything is super challenged. And to do that and lower on the steps, great. It's great. It's a big deal. It's a
Always
big deal.
options, all of these, even squats, even lateral tube walking, any exercise that we give, we can make it harder.
I believe we even have an exercise
And we can make it
video.
easier.
I think there's a video on YouTube that we did, maybe even 2 years ago, about how to make any exercise harder. I think we talked about tempos and
Yes.
stuff. So pretty much everything we've said so far is on YouTube too.
Yeah.
And the YouTube would be under
Roots Up in Fitness. Yeah. Yeah.
How would they get to say the squat video?
On YouTube, if you're not familiar with YouTube, there are playlists on people's YouTube channels. So we have a playlist that I think there's like core workouts, keep your hips healthy, keep your knees healthy, keep your legs healthy. So probably in the keeping knees healthy is squat stuff. Keeping hips healthy is probably squat stuff. Keeping shoulders healthy is probably plank stuff. So to look through the various playlists on our channel will give you great, and there's, I don't even know how many hundreds of videos, but there's hundreds of videos, workouts, education videos, all sorts of stuff.
Good.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah,
Berman,
so
you've
we
heard-
talked, we wanted to do, we did our planks, we did our squats, we did our tube walking, some hip stuff. How about a little more of the heart health we were talking about, maybe like some intervals as
Yeah,
well.
yes.
Which we talked a little about with the exercises, we could do, maybe with like walking.
Yeah, so intervals for your heart rate training, your cardiovascular and cardiorespiratory training, as I said, your heart's a muscle just like any other. So you would not typically pick up 10-pound dumbbells and do bicep curls and have the muscles burn and keep going. You would have your muscles burn, and then you would put the weights down and you would let them recover, then you'd pick them up again. Your heart deserves the same treatment. Let's say you're walking your dog. Maybe you run from one mailbox to the next, or you walk fast if you don't want to run. And that's going to get your heart rate up a little bit, and then you walk to the next mailbox a little slow, and then to the next mailbox you walk quickly, and then to the next mailbox you walk slow. Getting your heart rate up a little bit, and then getting it down a little bit, getting it up a little bit, and getting it down a little bit has been proven to strengthen your heart muscle, because you're giving it the opportunity to work really hard, but you're giving it the opportunity to recover as well.
Which is really where the work is, in
Because-
your recovery.
That is true. And if you can get the heart rate to recover faster, you'll be able to go again quicker. You'll be able to get more intervals in 30 minutes than you did when you
And
started.
that really is the point when you hear people talk about like high intensity training and all of that stuff. It's not just to go as hard as you can. It really is ultimately over time, you're going to get your heart rate to come down more quickly over time. And also what's great about that kind of training up and down, is that later when you are sitting on your couch watching your favorite Netflix show, maybe eating popcorn or something, you're still going to be burning calories. So that's important too. But more importantly is to, work that heart muscle and to bring that resting heart rate down, get it down a lot more quickly. Because it might take you from one mailbox to the other, depending on if you're sedentary or not. It might take you a minute or two, maybe more, to actually bring your heart rate down. But over time, when you add more intervals in, you'll see that that heart rate's going to come down a lot more quickly, which is really a sign of how fit you are, not the number on the scale or the size of your pants.
That's correct. And steady state cardio is something that's very popular for people. Steady state cardio, walking on your treadmill for 30 minutes, steady state at a pace, listening to your Audible book, that's great. And then maybe the next day, you're on your treadmill for 30 minutes, and maybe you do a hill for a minute, and then a flat for a minute, and then a hill for a minute, and then a flat for a minute, so that you're incorporating intervals with the steady state cardio. Both of them work really well together. I'm a huge fan of the cardio intervals. There's a lot of science behind it. And it's kind of, I feel like it's almost one of my specialties.
Mhm.
It's super, super important. There's ways to do, we've actually done a course on it, on cardio training. That's probably on YouTube somewhere or on our website or something, but there really is science behind it. There's benefit to the heart rate training and the intervals. And as I said, it could be something as simple as walking faster for a block and then slowing down for a block and walking faster for a block. It doesn't have to be, jumping and squatting and craziness. It could simply be, maybe you get up on a commercial break because you hit pause on your Netflix binging between episodes because it counts down and starts the next one real fast. But maybe you hit pause and you decide that you're going to walk up and down your stairs 5 times. And maybe after you walk up and down your stairs 5 times, you might crank out 10 push-ups on your 5th step. And then you go back and watch Netflix.
So this is doable for anyone.
Yes.
If you're
Yes.
sedentary,
Yes.
and you're watching this video, you can start walking to the first mailbox.
Absolutely. Yes.
And then you pick it up in a
Yes.
second, slowly again. So anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it. And I
Anyone can
think
do
we said, I don't know if it was in our part 3 or part 2, but I know we had talked about walking around your house even. I said in my house, I have kind of a center area with, you can kind of walk around, make a full circle, a lap around my house. And there have been times and days and situations where that's been some of my movement. I just take laps around my circle in my house. So yeah, anybody can do it.
And
You
just-
really can. Yes, you can.
And we really think too that, I think sometimes people think so much when we're talking about exercise and strength training. Everyone thinks big. Everyone thinks you have to go hard. Everyone thinks about the person on the cover of some magazine, but that's not real. I mean, it's not real. And maybe if you are a professional athlete, that's what you're going to be. Most of us are not professional athletes. So it's okay to just walk around your house, 20 times. I have a client where I used to, an older client, and that's what he did for his exercise. He walked up and down his hallway, 20, 30 times a day. And look, we're big believers in any movement is really great movement. Motion is lotion. It's great for so many things, not just physically, your joints, your mental health. But think about it. If you're typically used to sitting on your couch, or, if you've been injured or whatever, you're stuck in your home for all these crazy reasons, you have a choice. You can sit and maybe watch TV or just sit and eat your snack or whatever, which is nothing wrong with those things. But you can still get up and move your body, whether it's marching in place, whether it's doing your sit to stands. Again, I think any movement is good movement, and you'll start to notice changes in your body just by doing these little simple exercises.
Science really has shown that those little things that Jen just mentioned, that you might think, oh, that's not going to make a difference. If I can't go do this for 30 minutes
A lot of
straight,
studies are out.
then it's not worth doing, and that's not what it is.
Absolutely not. We are all about the science, and there are studies about it. So, and you don't even have to go out and read any of that stuff. So think about it. Maybe you are someone who doesn't do a whole lot. Instead of thinking about, what you're going to do in a month, just say for maybe the next 3 days, say, okay, I'm gonna, I don't know, you watch these 2 television shows or something. I don't know what you're doing, but say that you do, and you're seated at, your sofa for 2 hours. Maybe you say on each commercial, or you set a timer every 20 minutes. What are you going to do? Can you get up and do 2 laps around your house? Can you get up and do 10 squats? That's it. It doesn't have to be huge. That is so attainable. Can you do that? Do that. Write it down. Okay. And then the next day, something's floating around me. The next day, maybe you say, oh my gosh, I did that, and it really wasn't a big deal. So maybe on that second day, again, if this is something new for you, add a lap, add a second lap. Maybe you do a couple more sit to stands or squats, and then maybe you add a couple of push-ups. So just add on a little bit. It does not need to be a lot. And then notice how you feel on that third day. Add something extra. Notice how you're feeling. If you feel like you could do that, keep going. Keep going, add a little more, and then you'll find, wow, maybe on that 4th or 5th day, I really do have a lot more energy. You know what? I don't think I'm going to sit there and watch the rest of that show. I'm going to walk out to the mailbox today. So keep track of it. Make these really small, attainable goals. Start to find a little bit of movement that works for you, buddy, and see what happens.
You guys have thermal.
Well, we weren't really showing a whole lot again with this because we showed a bunch on that first video. I mean, I can certainly come down and show you a few if you would like. should I show one or two things on the ground? Do you think?
Sure.
So we'll just show one or two
About
things.
the
Again,
glutes.
yeah, again, this is all about getting those muscles ready to work, but you can also do this after you've worked out. So I'm going to focus on the glutes, which really are your hips. So since we're talking about walking and squatting, so I'm basically sitting on it. Again, if you have difficulty sitting on something or coming to the floor, this is not something I would recommend putting in a chair or an unsturdy surface. Just make sure you're holding on to something. And then I just, kind of shift my weight and get into the muscle, the soft tissue, and just kind of roll around. You can also cross that leg over and roll into it as well. Get all up into that glute. And you're going to find some spots.
What you're going to find is probably a bit of a bruising or a tender sensation.
Mhm.
And when you find that bruising or tender sensation, you sit on it, Richie. Sit on it. I'm older than I appear.
And
You-
it looks like also that you're also helping with balance.
Yes, of course. Balance, my core, everything is working right here. My shoulder's working to hold me up. Yeah, and obviously, if there's certain moves you can't do, you can come to your hand, you can come down to your forearm. There's a lot of things you do with this where if I'm going to get the side of my leg, I come all the way down to the ground and roll on it. And anywhere where you have soft tissue, you can roll. You can roll the side of your leg, you can roll your quads. And again, when you feel that tender spot where it feels like, oh, and a lot of times you might actually jump, you want to just hold your weight, your pressure right onto that. And eventually it will probably release, not necessarily right away, but you might feel some releasing. Yes.
Just adhesion and your fascia. And the point of the foam rolling is to, release some of the fascia and some of the adhesions in the fascia so that the signal from the brain to the muscle travels quicker, faster, more efficiently, more effectively. It's great to do pre and post workout. Post workout helps with soreness.
It's a form of stretching, really.
It's great. It's a little massage. It's great.
Now, you guys mentioned when you talked to me about walking, you have a walking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We just started. Yeah. Thanks, Joan. We just started today our second walking challenge. It's a 6-week challenge where we ask you to walk 100 miles on your own throughout that 6 weeks. We just started it today. You can still sign up. We encourage you to do so. We just finished one that was 6 weeks and we did 60 miles in 6 weeks. It was great. And so now we're up in the ante a little bit, doing 100 miles in 6 weeks. We have a Facebook group. It's private. It offers plenty of accountability, support, ideas. You can reach out and say, hey, I live over in Solomons. Does anybody want to meet and walk on the boardwalk? The space is 6 feet apart. I'll totally wear my mask. Can I bring my dog? What have you? So it's a great opportunity to keep you moving, get you outside. Everybody can walk and move in September when the weather's beautiful, and even through October. But then it starts to get cold and people go, I'm going to quit.
You can still move.
Yeah.
Layer it up.
Yeah, layer it up, keep going. Our goal, again, is to help our community keep moving and keep feeling good. So the more we can get you guys together safely, virtually through the Facebook group, walking on your own, sharing ideas, sharing stories for accountability, hitting those goals and feeling good, getting some fresh air. It's just good stuff.
Yep.
That's on our website.
So today's Monday, November 2nd. Today's Monday, November 2nd. We're going to start walking 100 miles. And how would somebody become part of your Facebook? Is it just really stuff on
So if you
Facebook
wanted
Live?
to do the walking challenge, go to our website. I would say anything with us, always go to the website. Our website has all the information, all the links. There's a link right there, 100-mile challenge. Click it.
Yep. And it'll take you right there.
Sign up.
Create an account and do everything. So
Yeah.
yes, that's the easiest way.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe we'll see you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's,
I don't
it's a
know.
lot of fun.
It is. It's super fun.
How many people made it 60 miles?
So-
How many people that signed up?
I think we had somewhere shy of 30 people. I feel like it was maybe 28 or 29 people. And I think everybody, they can correct me if I'm wrong if they're watching, but I think everybody got it. I know I was very nervous about it and I got 87 miles.
Well, and I'll tell
Yeah.
you too, I mean, and I usually am not a walker. I mean, you can certainly run in this challenge. I just don't want to freak anyone out. The last one was run walk as well. And I'm typically a runner, but I have a little hip thing going on. So I ended up walking. And I have to say, like Kathy was nervous she wouldn't make it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be boring or whatever. It was wonderful. I mean,
Right.
really, walking is so underrated. And I mean, it forced me out of my house a lot. And I easily did the 60 miles and it was great. Every soccer game my kid had, when they're practicing, instead of sitting there in my car watching, I would move, walk my dog extra. Like, it was really important for me to just get out there and move, then come back to that accountability group and say,
Right.
oh my gosh, I did 1.7 miles, or I just did 3.4 miles, and it was, cold, or it was this, but I couldn't wait to come back, not to be like, hey, this is what I did, but to be like, I'm proud of myself.
Right.
I did this. How did you do? Or maybe I didn't walk yet that day and I saw someone else say, I got out there and it's not as cold as it might look, or it's not as hot or whatever. And that just would inspire me to be like, get up and go.
Right.
It's better than just sitting and doing nothing. And again, even if you only have 15 minutes, like 15 minutes is better than nothing. You'd be surprised it adds up.
What I found was cool personally for me with the 60 miles is I have a buddy who has also just kind of started to get back into her own health journey. And so we were meeting safely and outside, but we were meeting to hold each other accountable and walk. And through that, we were spending more time together.
Yep.
So not only was I hitting my mile goals, I was connecting with a friend that I hadn't connected with in a while. More than once a month. It was like we were meeting 2 to 3 times a week. And it was glorious. And I cherish that. And I can't wait to do that again with this 100-mile challenge. My son kept me honest too, and he wanted to get the miles in. So he was kind of included as well. So walking is great. In fact, I think our podcast that's coming out this week, the title is Walking is Awesome.
It is.
Because it is.
And I'll be honest, like I'm just not someone who like weighs myself and does a lot of that. But I did for this challenge just out of curiosity. And again, not trying, didn't change anything else, actually working out a lot less than what I normally do. And I think I ended up losing like 2 pounds.
Wow.
I mean, which for me is a lot because I don't need to lose weight. But I'm just saying, like, people don't realize that just to get out and walk can do so much. And again, there's so much research there that just shows how beneficial it is mentally, the cellular level. There's just so many
And
things
right,
that's good for us.
right now, again, Jen and I want you all to feel good. So to walk outside,
Mhm.
to get these miles in, even if it's on your own because the virtual school in your house, you're losing your mind and you need to get out for 15 minutes. This is your excuse to do that. Oh, I got to get my miles in, honey. Be back in 15 minutes, So really right now, anything we can do to reach out there and help you guys, that's what we're trying to do.
I
So
think another thing to remember also is that people say, well, I don't want myself, I need a buddy.
Well,
You don't need a buddy.
No, and you don't need a buddy, but what's also nice about our group, we do on the accountability page, we, sometimes people do say, hey, let's meet up, or we might say once a week, hey, if you want to meet like outside of our studio, obviously with all the proper precautions and everything, it's always outside, you can, and it's a safe place. People have gotten to know each other, and that's what has happened with a lot of these challenges that we created, is people that don't normally know each other or that aren't super friendly, they start to become friends and they build on our community. And that really is important of us.
And they
Yes.
do feel better. And that's the thing that we're
Happier.
hearing from people is they feel better. They feel happier. They feel less stressed because they're given the opportunity to take that mental break, to go do something.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
for
also,
sure.
again, with people starting to move, or even if you move a lot, like even for someone like myself who does move a lot, it's nice sometimes to just get movement where there's not so much expected of you, or you're not going into it like, all right, I'm gonna have this 60-minute really hard class. I know I'm gonna be sweating. I know I'm gonna be sore, which I love. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just want people to understand, whether they're this high elite athlete or not, that walking is greatly beneficial, and you're always going to get something out of it. And sometimes it's nice just to go out and move your body, and again, just feel good, period. We want you to feel good. People don't always necessarily feel great after their workout. I mean, like, they did it and they feel good. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not giving the wrong impression, but sometimes just to walk, just to move a little bit, maybe you get a little sweat going on, maybe your heart rate goes up a little bit, maybe you do those intervals, maybe you connected with someone. And just to have all that nature around you, I know for me, that just does a lot for my soul. That feels good. I mean, I can be in a really bad mood and, the house and the kids and the whatever. then I just go and move my body a little bit, breathe that fresh, crisp fall air out there.
Right.
I'm a new person.
Right.
So we really aren't just saying this to say this. We're not saying it just for someone who, might be more sedentary. This is for everybody.
Mhm.
At whatever level you're at, add walking into your routine and you will be amazed at the changes. that
I
you
think
see.
the goal too with this 100-mile challenge is to keep people going. Like I said, we can walk in this beautiful fall weather, but when it gets
Keep
cold,
moving.
don't stop.
Mhm.
When it gets cold, you put on a coat and
Yes.
you meet somebody and you do it anyway.
And even if there's snow on the ground, you can walk in the snow.
Yes, you
And then,
can.
there's also other places. I mean, there are some large buildings that, the precautions are there. You can walk around. Again, walk in your house.
You can
Giving
walk
you
from
lots
your
of
car.
options.
You can park your
Yes.
car farther from
Yes,
where you
The
work.
beauty of all of this too really is you know what to do.
Mhm.
You know what to do. You know what to do. You know what to do. We're just here to help you do it.
Mhm. Just do it. And
That's
reach
the
out.
thing.
You can reach out to us at any time. You can
Mhm.
email us, send us a message through Facebook, however you need to get in touch with us.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Does anybody have any more
Yeah.
questions?
Any questions? I don't think I
Step a
see
little
anything.
closer.
All right. So in a couple of weeks, I'm going to thank Jen and Kathy. We'll say goodbye
Okay.
now.
Thank you guys. This has
Thanks.
been great. Come to the library. It's beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous here.
But I just want to say in a couple of weeks, we will have all this on our YouTube page. So that's 2 places that you can go to see it. You can reference this from the Roots Up YouTube page or the St. Mary's County Library page. So thank you for joining us and we will see you next time. Have a good afternoon.